Welcome, dear listeners. Join me as I explore the bizarre and chilling mystery of the Bell Witch. A 19th century haunting in rural Tennessee torments a family with strange sightings, frightening sounds, and escalating violence for generations. One night, 4 young brothers were sleeping in their bedroom in their small house in Tennessee when they started to hear what sounded like a rat gnawing on one of their bedposts. So, the 2 eldest brothers climbed out of their beds to find this rat. However, the moment their feet touched the wooden floor, the gnawing sound stopped. The boys checked the room and the bedposts, but there was no sign of any rat. Eventually, the 2 eldest brothers shrugged it off and got back into bed. Yet, when they closed their eyes again, the gnawing sound filled the room once more. This time, it was louder and more frantic. Little did they know that these sounds were just the beginning of a multi-year-long nightmare that they and the rest of their family would have to endure. Their terrifying story is known as the Bell Witch haunting. In 1804, a man named John Bell decided that his farm in North Carolina was too small for his growing family, so he, along with his wife Lucy and their 6 children, packed all their belongings onto wagons and traveled more than 600 miles west to a 1,000-acre patch along the Red River in northern Tennessee. The area they settled was known as Robertson County, and at the time, it was very rural, with hardly anyone living there. The Bell family, upon arriving in Robertson County, expected to work with the few families that were there to build up the settlement. They essentially wanted to build a town from scratch. This hard work was something John Bell was born for. He was raised on a farm, known for working extremely hard and never giving up. John was also very generous and excellent at working with others. In fact, when his family was still in North Carolina, John and his sweet wife Lucy would open their door to anyone in need of a place to stay or a hot meal. Sometimes, John would even give money to his neighbors when they were going through tough times. After settling in Robertson County and meeting their few neighbors, the Bell family quickly became one of the most popular families in the area. For many years, they lived a happy and prosperous life. John would wake up early each morning, rouse the children, and send them to school through the nearby woods. During the day, while the children were at school, John and his older sons would work the land or help build structures in town to develop the settlement. They also built boats for transporting the tobacco and meats from their farm for trade. As John and Lucy had 3 more children while in Robertson County, their oldest children began marrying and starting families of their own, building houses nearby. However, one summer day in 1817, 13 years after the Bell family's arrival in Robertson County, John had a very strange experience. At the time, he would dismiss it, but it would later become a significant part of their story. On that summer day in 1817, John was walking through his cornfield near the house when he noticed a large dog sitting in the middle of the field. While there were many dogs around Robertson County, this one looked different. It appeared misshapen, as if its bones had been broken and reset at awkward angles. It was also unusually large, resembling a wolf rather than a typical dog. The dog stared at him in a very human way, maintaining eye contact. Although not easily spooked, he felt unsettled and slightly panicked. John had his rifle with him and fired in the direction of the dog. The dog ran away, disappearing into the forest. When John inspected the spot where the dog had been sitting, he found no traces, no paw prints, and no sign of any creature. He was perplexed, but eventually dismissed it as a missed shot, telling himself it was just a large, ugly dog. However, not long after his encounter with the dog in the cornfield, his family began experiencing strange phenomena. At night, after the Bell family had gone to bed, they would hear knocking sounds on the sides of their house. Whenever they investigated, the knocking would stop, only to start on another side of the house once they returned to bed. It was as if someone or something was outside their house, circling it and periodically knocking on the walls. John was convinced that this was the work of a person, a prankster hiding in the woods. He instructed his family not to mention the tapping sounds to anyone in town, thinking that someone from the community was behind it. He wanted the pranksters to return so that he could catch them in the act. Over several weeks, the knocking continued, and every time John attempted to find the source, he found no one and no tracks around the house. The unsettling knocking sounds were just the beginning of the strange occurrences that the Bell family would face. One Sunday night in May of 1818, roughly 1 year after John had seen that big dog in the cornfield, and a couple of months after the knocking on the walls had begun in the Bell household, 4 of John's sons were asleep in their bedroom inside their home. They woke up to a sound resembling a rat gnawing on one of their bedposts. The boys, sleeping in 2 bunk beds, with the 2 eldest brothers on the lower bunks, instinctively got up and stepped onto the floor to find the rat. However, the moment their feet touched the floor, the gnawing sound completely disappeared. The 2 boys searched the room, but they couldn't find any signs of the rat, and when they checked all of the bedposts, there was no evidence of any gnawing. The 2 older brothers eventually shrugged it off and climbed back into bed. As soon as they closed their eyes, the gnawing sound returned, only now it was louder and more frantic, as if whatever was under their beds was desperately trying to chew through the wood. Again, when the 2 older brothers leaped out of bed to find the animal, the sound stopped and the room went silent. The boys searched the room again but found no signs of a rat or any animal. There were no marks on the underside of their beds, leaving them baffled. The gnawing sounds continued throughout the night, making it nearly impossible for the boys to sleep. The same pattern repeated on the following night. However, on the 3rd night, the boys heard a new sound in their room. As they lay in their beds, exhausted from barely sleeping for 2 nights, they began hearing what sounded like someone gasping for air beneath their beds, as if they were being choked, gulping, smacking their lips, and clawing at the underside of the beds. The 2 oldest boys, terrified, leaped from their beds to confront whatever was beneath them. But once again, as soon as their feet hit the floor, the sound ceased and the room became still. This time, the boys were too frightened to go back to sleep, so they woke up the rest of their family. The Bell family searched the entire house from top to bottom, looking for any indication of what could have been making those sounds. But they found nothing unusual in their house, no marks from any animal or rat, no indications of anything other than normal. Up to this point, the Bell family had not told anybody in town about the knocking sounds on the walls, the rat gnawing sounds, or the gasping and gulping sounds. Part of it was because John had instructed the family not to tell anyone and that they would catch whoever was doing this. But another part was that the family feared they would be ridiculed, as people might not believe them. However, after the night with the gasping and gulping sounds, the Bell children couldn't sleep any longer. They were up all night, terrified. So finally, John went to one of his neighbors, whom he was very close to, and confided in him about the strange occurrences inside his house. John was known as an honest and straightforward person who didn't make things up or tell jokes, so his neighbor took him seriously. The neighbor agreed to stay the night in the Bell household to see if he could hear the strange sounds. That night, he heard the tapping on the walls, the rat-gnawing sounds in the boys' room, and the gasping and gulping sounds coming from under the bed. The neighbor was so terrified that he didn't stay the entire night in John's house and left in the middle of the night to return to his own home. News about what was happening at the Bell household quickly spread around Robertson County. The townspeople reacted with support, as the Bell family had played a crucial role in building up the settlement, and John and his wife, Lucy, were known for their kindness and generosity. The townspeople decided to rally around the Bell family and provide them with support. Some townspeople volunteered to spend the night in the Bell household, not only to offer comfort, but also in the hope that their presence would deter whatever or whoever was tormenting the Bells. No matter who stayed inside the Bell household, the mysterious noises continued every night. Townspeople came up with various explanations for what was happening, from suspecting John's youngest daughter of being behind it for attention to speculating that someone in town was targeting the Bell family due to animosity. There was even a theory that someone in town had learned ventriloquism and was using it to play pranks on the Bell family. The townspeople repeatedly searched the Bell household alongside the Bell family, but never found any signs of what could be causing these noises. People even took turns monitoring each member of the Bell family as they slept to make sure none of them were responsible for the sounds. Each time, as the Bell family was closely watched, the noises would start, making it clear that none of the Bell family members were the source of the sounds. As months went by, the Bell family was forced to endure the ongoing mysterious phenomena. During this time, the townspeople began to notice something unusual about John Bell. Normally, John was very engaged and paid close attention when speaking to others. However, after the strange occurrences began in his house, there were moments when John's eyes would gloss over, his jaw would go slack, and he would appear to stare into the distance, with facial twitches growing more pronounced over time. His jaw quivered, his eyes blinked out of sync, and after the twitching stopped, John would silently leave any conversation, walk back to his house, go to his bedroom, and sit on his bed for hours, staring at the wall without eating, drinking, or saying anything. The Bell family felt like hostages in their own home. They had no idea what was causing these phenomena or why they were happening. A constant sense of dread filled them. As for the townspeople, many of them believed that whatever was happening to the Bell family was likely caused by their neighbor, Kate Batts. Kate was known to be eccentric and somewhat unpleasant. She had faced misfortune as her husband became disabled, and her 3 children had died young. Kate also had a peculiar habit of using complex words in her conversations, often misusing them, which made her sound unusual. Townspeople started referring to the mysterious phenomenon at the Bell household as simply Kate, associating it with Kate Batts. However, when Kate learned about this, she was deeply offended and denied any involvement in what was happening to the Bells. By September of 1820, the terrifying events at the Bell household had continued for 3 years. The Bell family had learned to live with them, but John Bell's condition was deteriorating. It seemed that the longer these strange occurrences persisted, the more John became a mere shadow of his former self. His dazes and twitching fits happened more frequently, and the hours he spent sitting in his bedroom, silently staring at the wall without eating, drinking, or saying anything, grew longer. One day, as John's health deteriorated, his daughter Esther left the house to collect eggs in the hen house located across the lane from the Bell house. While walking, she heard what sounded like someone moving behind her. She turned around and saw a woman dressed in black with her head down, walking slowly down the road she had just walked on, heading toward their house. Esther recognized her as someone from the village and greeted her with a friendly hello. However, the woman didn't respond or turn around, continuing to walk slowly. Esther tried again, but the woman remained unresponsive. Esther, growing uneasy, walked faster to catch up with her, calling out several more times, but the woman didn't react. As Esther got closer to the woman, she realized she was a neighbor from the village. Esther, puzzled, continued trying to engage her but received no response. Now, just 15 feet away, Esther stopped on the road, staring at the woman's back. When Esther halted, the woman, still facing away, also stopped. She then removed her bonnet, allowing her black, matted hair to tumble down her back. The woman began running her fingers through her hair as if trying to comb it, while Esther observed. However, the woman wasn't just combing her hair. She was pulling clumps of it out, and Esther could hear the hair being ripped from her scalp. In no time, hair covered the ground around the woman. Esther, terrified, ran past the woman, charged into her house, locked the door, and called for one of her sisters. They went to the front window and saw the woman still on the road, pulling her hair out. When the woman made eye contact with Esther, she froze, staring directly at her. Slowly, she brought her hands down, turned, and walked out of view. Esther and her sister, taken aback by the woman's gaze, were startled. They left the front window and ran to a side window where they had seen the woman. They saw this woman climbing up and over their fence, entering their side property. Behind her were 3 children they hadn't seen before, marching right behind the woman in black. This woman and the children, in plain sight of Esther and her sister, entered a grove of trees on the Bell property. Esther and her sister watched in astonishment. One by one, first the woman and then each of the children climbed separate trees. Once all four of them were up in these trees, they turned around to face Esther and her sister. They began swaying in the trees, causing the trees to bend and wave vigorously from side to side. Esther and her sister were horrified and couldn't comprehend what they were witnessing. At that moment, Esther's husband happened to arrive through the front door. Hearing their commotion, Esther called out to him to look out the window and witness what was happening. Esther's husband rushed to the window but couldn't see the woman or the three children. He could only see the trees swaying unnaturally. Esther and her sister realized he couldn't see what they were seeing. In their panic, they screamed, and her husband, bewildered, attempted to understand the situation. Finally, the trio ran from the window, went out the back door, and circled to the side yard to confront the woman and the children. But when they reached the grove of trees, the woman and the children had vanished, leaving no tracks on the ground to indicate recent presence. Not long after this incident, in October 1820, John Bell and one of his sons were walking on their farm when John suddenly stopped, as if protecting himself from an impending blow, and his face contorted grotesquely. His back arched to the point where it seemed it might break. His son, watching in shock, rushed to help him. As his son attempted to pull John upright, a terrifying shriek filled the air. They had no idea where it was coming from. John's son, unable to comprehend the situation, watched as his father's face returned to normal and the shrieking ceased. They returned home in silence. By December 19, 1820, John Bell had not come down for breakfast, causing concern within the family. They found him in his bedroom, still breathing but unresponsive. Despite their efforts, they couldn't rouse him. When they checked the medicine cabinet, they discovered that all the medicine was missing, replaced by a strange glass vial containing a smoky, dark liquid previously unseen by the family. Perplexed and alarmed, the family summoned a doctor to examine John and identify the mysterious liquid. The doctor, uncertain of how to help John, found it inexplicable that he remained unresponsive. Concerned about the liquid, the doctor suggested testing it on farm animals to understand its effects. The family located a stray cat, administered the liquid, and within minutes, the cat had perished. The Bell family maintained that they had not placed the vial in the medicine cabinet, and they had no knowledge of its origin. John's condition did not improve, and the following morning, he passed away. After John's death, the strange occurrences at the Bell household largely ceased, although some townspeople reported witnessing mysterious lights and hearing a sing-song voice emanating from the Bell property. Lucy, John's wife, resided in the house until 1838, when she passed away. Today, nothing remains of the Bell household, but there is a cave on their property, an underground cavern. Some people believe that this cave is where whatever tormented the Bells originated. As the echoes of the Bell Witch's malevolent laughter fade into the night, the chilling presence of this spirit continues to haunt the small town of Adams, Tennessee. The legend of the Bell Witch remains a bone-chilling tale, a reminder that in the darkness, some secrets are better left buried, and some spirits never rest. If you ever find yourself near the old Bell farm, be sure to heed the eerie warning that lingers in the wind. Beware of the Bell Witch.